Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. All right, my beauty professionals. This afternoon, we're going to be talking about hair cutting for beginners. Now, in this video, we're going to be doing theory for the 4 elevations that I teach in the classroom. And then the next video, I'll demonstrate a solid 0 degree, no elevation haircut. And then the next video, I'm going to do like I said I'm going to show you how to cut permed hair. So that'll be my next video. But I wanted to start off with that because this was a request video from Vesna. And I'm so sorry, Vesna, that it's taken me so long. But I want to get started on these videos for her. And yeah. So that's what we're doing today. The first elevation, like I said, is a 0 degree, no elevation. A couple of things you want to know about that is when your client is in your chair, he or she needs to be sitting straight. They cannot have their head down, looking at their phone or reading anything or leaning their head in any way like this. And you, the stylist, want to make sure that you're standing straight, that you're not applying your body weight to one side or the other. Because when you do that, your mind automatically tells you to bring the hair over to where you're leaning. Bring the hair over to you. And that's the hardest thing about cutting a no elevation is learning to keep that hair straight down. And really the back of your hand, you should feel the client's drape up against your hand. And that's how you'll know you're not elevating the hair. Because if you don't feel the drape, then you know the hair is elevated. If you feel the drape, then you know that hair is going straight down. Sometimes, depending on how long their hair is, you would have that client actually stand, and you have to make sure they're standing straight because the little elevation of the back of the chair is pushing the hair out. So that will give it a slight elevation, which just means there's going to be slight layering. And so, yeah, if you really want a solid cut, these are little steps that you want to take to get your complete solid cut, no elevation. All right. So who would get a solid cut? Someone who's getting a bob haircut. That's a solid cut. Someone who wants a trim and they don't want any layering. That's a solid haircut. And I have a picture of it that I drew. Don't judge. But those are heads that I'm drawing with the hair coming out and the different elevations. So that's a 0 degree. Before I get into my next elevation, I want to tell you about the guidelines for hair cutting. So there's 2 types of guides. There's a mobile or traveling guide, or there's a stationary guide. So a stationary guide, usually you're using with the no elevation haircut, just means that there's only one guideline for that entire haircut. So if you get lost, you would go all the way back to that original guide that you set. With a mobile or traveling guide, which is usually in your more layered cuts, you could use it in a 45 degree cut, or you could use it in a 90, well, you will use it in a 90 degree haircut. Usually a 180 is a stationary where the guide is set up here and you're bringing the hair up to this one guide. But with the mobile or traveling guide, if you get lost, you would go back to where you last cut the hair because it continues to travel along with you. And that's how you would find your way back through the haircut. So remember, a guide, it's just like when you're traveling, a guide will show you the different spots, the touring spots, where to go. Well, in a haircut, a guide guides you along the haircut so you don't end up cutting too much hair off. So it's very important to know your guides and not to recut your guides. And that's probably the biggest errors that I see when teaching hair cutting is a lot of times the students will grab a bunch of hair in the fingers and then they feel like they have to recut the guide they just set along with the hair that they're supposed to be cutting to match up to the guide, and that's how they get lost. All right, some golden rules for hair cutting. One, when you're not cutting the hair and you're combing or subsectioning or sectioning the hair or clipping hair up out of your way, you want to do what's called palming your shears. Secondly, you never want to cut past the second knuckle. Now, sometimes that rule can be bent when you are cutting on top of the fingers, doing a layered cut. You can go slightly past the second knuckle, but you never want to cut all the way back to that opening there in the fingers. Also, when you're cutting with the razor, you usually want to cut on damp hair. When you're cutting on dry hair, and some people may disagree with this, but I know from my experience, when you cut on dry hair, it tears the hair. And what you'll see is little white bulbs sticking out on the hair where the hair is screaming, where you cut through the cuticles and through the cortex, and now it's just open and damaged hair. So that's one thing. You always want to sweep the hair immediately after your haircut. A lot of times you don't see that in salons. They just continue to do the blow dry and the styling, but hair is slippery. So it is a danger to yourself and to your clients if you don't clean that hair up before you even style the hair. All right, a 45-degree haircut, also known as a wedge. Another term you might hear for it is stacked layers. Also, an A-line is what we call a blunt 45-degree haircut. And then you have your stacked A-line, which is also a 45. Sometimes a 90 if you want more layers in the back. But usually a stacked layer if you have that wedge effect where it's coming out in here and tapering in. That's a 45 degree. All right, you got your 180, which is also known as long layers. Some people like to call them increased layers. But literally what you'll find in this haircut is the hair is shorter in here, and then you find it falling into longer layers going down. Now, this is for someone who has long hair. They want layers. They don't want to lose the length. So you would cut layers inside of that length so that they don't lose the length, but they also have layers inside. So an example that I have is Jennifer Aniston on the show Friends. That was a perfect example of the 180 haircut, or the long layers, or increased layered cut. The last haircut that I want to talk about is the uniform layers, which is the 90-degree haircut. And this haircut will give you your most layers, and also you'll notice the hair gets shorter. So a lot of short men haircuts and a lot of women's short haircuts is a 90-degree. And when it says uniform, it just means that wherever you pull it out from the curve of the head, it's even. So think of a perfect circle. You could think of a perfect mohawk going from the hairline here all the way down to the nape. That perfect line where it follows the curve of the head, that is also a 90-degree cut. Pixie cut is one, if someone tells you they come in and they want a pixie cut, that's a really short haircut. The best example I could think of was Halle Berry in the early 90s had that cut, and also Toni Braxton had that cut. So that's a 90-degree uniform layers. And that's all I have for this video, guys. I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. Look forward to my next video, which will be demonstrating the solid 0-degree haircut. And this is for you, Vesna. So thank you so much for your request. If anybody else has any requests or you have suggestions, please leave it in the comment section. And also any questions that you want to ask about State Board, you need help with your textbook, please feel free to ask me. That's why I'm here, and that's why I do these classes. God bless you guys, and thank you so much for supporting Ms. V's Beauty Tutorials. Bye.